and welcome everyone to our SEO Reborn Hackathon Awards. I would like to thank everyone, all the participants, all the judges, all the mentors, and everyone watching this live video right now. I would like to explain that over the past 4 weeks, the teams they have been testing real SEO word hypotheses, not simply trying to improve rankings. I would like to explain that you can expect from this live stream. Meet the teams, review the feature experiments, hear expert judge commentary, and review this year's winners. And I would like to introduce our CEO and president here at IMG, Tim Nichols. Tim?
Thanks, Amanda. I'm super excited about today. We've had several weeks of really great activity. Teams have put their work into this hackathon. We put this hackathon together so that we could practice what IMG has always been based on, using science to determine what really works and what doesn't out in the industry. So our contestants have put together a hypothesis. They've put together controlled variables and controlled testing and measures to determine what we can learn. The great thing about hackathons is they aren't necessarily about creating a specific outcome. They're about having a thesis and then testing to see the results. The winners are focused on what they learned and how they did and how they practiced the test. Today, we get to find out who brings home the prize. We put $2,500 on the line and someone gets to take it home.
Thanks, Tim. So, I would like to recognize everyone who participated in this hackathon. We had 6 teams and 3 of them submitted their final results. We had 7 judges, 2 mentors, and everyone who followed and supported the competition. And over the next few segments, we'll take a closer look at several of those experiments, hear directly from our judges, and explore what each team learned throughout the process. Let's begin with our first experiment, our first feature experiment. Our first feature experiment is the team Balaton Labs, and they focus on schema implementation. The team's goal was to determine whether schema complexity alone could influence indexing and rankings when every other controlled on-page variable remained the same. To answer that question, they designed an experiment that isolated the schema as the primary variable and carefully documented each stage of their testing process. Let's take a look and approach the experiment.
Hello everyone, my name is Bente Hsueh, and together with my teammate Faizan, we worked on the schema complexity test. Let me walk you through what we tested, what we noticed, and what we learned. First, let me explain our test setup. We created 25 test pages across 5 keyword groups. For every keyword group, we created 5 schema variations. Everything else stayed the same. Every page had the same word count, the same heading structure, and the same layout. We didn't want to test schema on an empty website, so we built a fictional chocolate research company. The website included chocolate types, researchers, and related entities. We also added standard trust pages like about, contact, privacy policy, and impressum as usual. These pages were not part of the test, they were only there to create a realistic website while keeping the test pages controlled. To keep the test consistent, every test page used the same lorem ipsum text. Once everything was ready, I checked every schema implementation to make sure everything was working correctly. Then I submitted the XML sitemap to Google Search Console and started requesting indexing for the test pages. After that, I was ready to start checking the results. During the first week, everything started as expected. Google quickly discovered the XML sitemap, and soon after that, Googlebot started crawling the test pages also. At that point, I was happy to see that Google had found the website. However, none of the test pages entered Google's index, so I still had no ranking data. Instead of changing the test too early, I decided to keep monitoring the indexing process. So during the second week, I kept requesting indexing through Google Search Console, but nothing seemed to change, unfortunately. So after several days, I decided to try something different. Instead of requesting indexing directly, I first ran the live URL test and then submitted the page again. Soon after that, some pages changed to crawled, currently not indexed. So I don't know if the live URL test caused this change or if it was simply part of Google's normal indexing process. So I treated this as an observation, not as a conclusion. There was still no indexing progress. I decided to try one more thing. So I added a link to the HTML sitemap in the website footer and submitted to Google Search Console as well. During the third week, nothing changed in Google. The test pages were still in the crawled, currently not indexed state, and I didn't see any new Google bot activity after the manual submissions. So I still had no ranking data from Google. But a few days earlier, I had also submitted the XML sitemap to Bing Webmaster Tools, and Bing processed the sitemap successfully and discovered all the URLs. And by the end of the week, the homepage and one no schema test page had entered the Bing index, which was an interesting observation, but with only 2 indexed pages, it was still too early to draw any conclusions at all. Near the end of the challenge, the judges allowed us to use an indexing service, but only for the homepage, to keep the test as fair as possible, so I used it only there. On the last day of the challenge, I searched for alpha test keywords in Bing, and surprisingly, I found almost all the test pages in the search results. So I compared the ranking positions of the different schema variations, and I really hope that I will find a clear pattern, but I didn't. The no schema pages reach the first position more often. The organization, product, and entity pages also performed well and were usually near the top. But one thing surprised me. The organization-only pages did not appear in the visible Bing results for any of the 5 keyword groups at all. And I don't know why this happened, and there isn't enough data to explain it yet, but it was really interesting. So, of course, these are observations, not conclusions yet. We started this project to see if schema complexity could affect indexing and rankings, but Google didn't index the test pages, so I couldn't compare the different schema variations as planned. But Bing gave me a few interesting observations, but there still isn't enough information to answer the questions. Maybe the answer will be that schema complexity doesn't make any difference, or maybe it does, I don't know. I'll keep monitoring the website and hopefully we'll know in a few more weeks.
Now that we've seen how the teams approached their tests, let's hear what the judges has to say.
I think this test is a perfect paradigm of why we do this. I think when everything goes sideways and things aren't indexing, I was like, well, let's look over here, and you can find extremely actionable results. And that just to me is what we do, and how much you learn by doing all of this. I work with many sites that only get traffic from Bing, and now they have something that they can directly apply to do even better, which that's a win. So it wasn't, when you laid it out, we're going this direction. It's like, that direction's not working, but what about over here? And then you find something truly actionable. So fantastic work with this. Great job. Excellent test.
Thank you to our judges for those insights. Let's continue with our next feature experiment. Our second feature experiment is from Team Gain, where they examine whether the source of an image could influence organic performance. The team isolated the image source as the primary variable, comparing locally hosted images with third-party hosted images, while keeping every aspect of the page consistent. Here is a closer look how they designed their experiment.
Hi, this is Michael with the Gain agency team, and I'm going to go over our test that we did for the SEO Reborn 2026 test. And here's our website, which is pretty nice looking for an SEO test. What we wanted to make it look nice because I'd seen some better results from sites that look like a professional, completely finished site, and then it allows us to, link down to the pages with living room, bedroom. So these have real content, like real words that some of them have a 0 volume, some have like 10 or 20, and then they're all pretty easy. There's kind of like 3 different bunches of keywords, some fake testimonials, and then blogs, and then it's basically a full site. It's got privacy policy terms and all that jazz. And what we were actually testing, this is technical SEO. We wanted to test if where the images are hosted matters for what we thought would be ranking, but also indexing. So here's these images. There's each of these, there's 9 pages. They all are very similar. They're about 900 words. They all are Claude Code AI content that was written on the same day with the same model, with the same prompt. They all have the same number of H2s, and I think it's 3. And then they have an H1. And then if you right click on something, it shows you where it's actually hosted. So this one's on the media library. Some other pages. So here's another page. You can see it looks basically the same. And then I think, was it this one or is it this one? Okay, so these are both on the media library. And there we go. And open an image in a new tab. And this one you can see in the URL is an Unsplash. So all the images are from Unsplash. They are all 1200 by 800. 3 pages linked to Unsplash. All use the same URL or file name, which is not very descriptive, but they use all the exact same. And then you can see right here in the pixels, 1200 by 800, the same quality of compression. All the images are about the same size. Just 3 of these pages are on Unsplash, we left them on Unsplash. 3 of them were pulled into the media library and 3 were pulled into Cloudflare R2 bucket to kind of test cloud or like a CDN type hosting. And that's the good news. The test was had basically, and you can see here, everything was modified on the same day, basically. And I touched the homepage again on the 27th, but every page was basically boom, 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 done in batches by Claude Code. Here's the bad news. Google is not indexing any of our pages. And you can see right here, they went from indexing 12 pages to flipping, and it says it's indexing 1, but it doesn't seem to be indexing even 1. There's no performance lately. It got some impressions, it got a click. Some things were ranking. There was basically about 3 groups of SEO keywords that some were very easy, like no search volume. Some had like 10 or 20, and then some had like 40 to 50. Temporarily, 1 of each type of image hosting page got indexed, and then that stopped. We also played with Bing to see if the results were much better. They weren't. And then we like last week we started getting more desperate, and like I made a Google site and I linked the homepage, and then I sent it to get indexed, and it just doesn't matter. Nothing is indexed on. See, this is the whole site, and so our site's not being indexed either. And then here's Bing. 4 of our pages are getting indexed. I'm having problems figuring out what the ranking is. So either they don't rank, or the ranking is so sporadic that it can't test. 2 of these are WordPress Media Library, and 2 are Cloudflare. Nothing on Unsplash is getting indexed, at least right now, and at least in Bing. But that wasn't really the test. The test is kind of an unconclusive. Image hosting doesn't seem to matter for ranking or being able to get indexed better. Thank you.
Now, let's hear how our judges evaluated this team's methodology and overall approach.
These are the types of tests that I absolutely love the most, where you can solve an age-old argument or problem. And I think you should stick with this one for a little bit, because I think you will be able to find an answer. And that to me is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun where people talk a lot and maybe they have some anecdotal evidence, but this is the kind of thing that can give real results. So stick with this one. Great job, great concept, great setup.
Thank you once again to our judges. And now let's move on to our final experiment. Our final featured experiment by Team Coco explored whether adding experimental case studies could influence rankings and AI visibility from an SEO framework, from a local SEO framework. Building on observations from a previous client work, the team designed a controlled experiment to see whether those findings could be reproduced in a testing environment. Let's take a look at their approach.
Hi there, I'm Colette with my final report for the SEO Hackathon 2026. My original experiment completely failed because Google refused to index any of the pages. So that's what I have here first. In trying to figure out why all of the pages failed indexing, I learned some interesting things that were potentially as interesting as what I was trying to do in the first place. So here we are on Search Console, and you can see that if I look down here at my keywords, at my pages rather, absolutely none of them were able to index. So what was my experiment? I generated pages for 4 nonsense keywords. So here's my home page. With those nonsense keywords, I created 5 pages for each nonsense keyword. So you can see the keywords here, and each one of those had 5 URLs with just 6 unique identifiers at the end of the URL. So if I click over to my page, I created these little sort of hub pages, and you can see those are the unique identifiers. Now, what I was trying to initially test was I wanted to see if you were to add an experiential case study to a page, would that increase your rankings? Because recently I had an extremely excellent success story with one of my clients where I added an experiential case study, done more in a project format, and we went from ranking 6th to ranking number 1, and we've maintained those rankings for over 2 months, and this is an extremely high value money page. So I wanted to see if I could test this on an actual testing website, not just on a client site. So I made all of these pages. I did everything I possibly could to rank them. So I did footer links in an existing website that I own. I did a homepage link. I did Index Me Now. I made a Medium article. I linked here from the homepage of this website. I did a LinkedIn post. And I also made a Google site that was sort of like a resource center for these nonsense keywords. And yes, absolutely none of that moved the needle. But one other thing that I did do created a very interesting result. So I also created a blog post on my own website, one of my websites that I operate, and that blog post immediately ranked. So here I'm on the Search Console for my website, and you can see this page here is indexed, and it began to rank. So now I'm just going to shift over and show you the rankings for that particular page. And I'll show you the blog post. So here we've got the nonsense keywords. I've used Valentin app, put it as Vancouver, BC, because I was testing all of this on local with Vancouver added to my keywords. And when I type in the keyword, what I'm getting is, first in this one, I've got an AI overview trying to basically correct me. It thinks I'm looking for something different. Then, of course, the map pack. And then immediately, number 1 is this blog post that I wrote. So let's open that up and I will show you. So I wrote this blog post just as a way to try and pass link juice to the testing website. So I have a website that's already ranking. It has okay authority, nothing amazing. I backdated it just so that people wouldn't find it in my blog. And what I did is I took a keyword that I was already ranking for, pancake lenses, and I also ranked for Vancouver. I just added Vancouver to this topic, wrote a very cursory, whatever, low quality blog post. As you can see, it's not even nicely formatted. And then I literally just stuffed the keywords at the end of it here. Related Vancouver services, and those are my keywords, my nonsense keywords. Put them right there, and then I did a read more section with every single link to every single page. So again, that's 4 nonsense keywords, 5 pages made for each one. And what was interesting was that for all of those keywords, I ranked number 1, even though that blog post is not optimized at all. I didn't even put that in the indexer, I don't think. And then I'm also ranking in Google Images. So that was an interesting takeaway for me, mostly because I realized if you have very, very low competition, just inserting the keyword very low on a page can actually get you ranking for that. Of course, that only is true if there's very low competition. So the other final interesting piece of this puzzle was checking what would happen on Google AI mode and ChatGPT, because I wanted to see, okay, did the pages fool them or not? Now, the first thing that's interesting, I'll try this again and see if I can show you, is what you've probably noticed is when you search something in AI mode, you start to see the logos up here, and it'll shuffle through the pages that it is reviewing. And that is what happened here. And what I immediately saw is that it showed my logo from this website. Thinking, oh, there it is. Okay, so the red S with an E, I just saw that logo in there. It basically showed me that it was scanning my website, it was scanning this blog, and decided not to include the information in the AI overview. And that's probably because it decided, no, I don't think that you're really looking for this. I think you want something to do with citing. They're just misinterpreting the nonsense keyword. So then the next interesting thing that I want to show you, and I will wrap this up because I know I'm already at 6 minutes here, but I wanted to show you how ChatGPT could basically tell that this was an SEO test. So first of all, I'm in AI mode. This is Google AI mode, not ChatGPT, this first one. Incognito mode, can you give me some information about who provides the following in Vancouver? And I've got my nonsense keyword. And then it's basically telling me, yeah, this doesn't exist, no dice, we're not going to help you. Then I ask another one, a different keyword, what about Tresolopticores in Vancouver? Now it's decided to clock, oh, that is an SEO test, and immediately tells me this is an SEO test. Then it gives me some other options in case that's not true. It cites me right over here, but it immediately tells me it's a test. But it does get cited. It does not cite my actual testing website. It is only citing the blog post that I was able to rank on my own website. It doesn't cite anything else. So if we had already suspected that you cannot get cited by pages that are not ranked, I feel like this confirms it pretty well. Of course, more testing might be needed, but many of us have already known that SEO informs GEO, and you have to get your pages to rank in order to get cited. And that is what I found to be true with this, is that the only thing that got cited was my blog post, which was ranking. And yeah, similar thing throughout all of my other questions. It would try and tell me, no, that's not a real thing. And then if I pushed it, it would eventually try and tell me it was a test. So again, here it's telling me this is a test done by Colette Nickel. So yes, the AI is on to us. And in order to wrap this up, I guess I'll just share my takeaway. My takeaway was number one, focus on building authority in a legitimate manner, because that is going to really be the thing that drives SEO success rather than hacking things. That being said, if you want to hack, you have to make sure that what you're doing is ranking, because there's a lot of information right now about just making all sorts of pages to try and commingle your brand terms with your keywords. But the reality is that if the pages are not ranking, then that commingling is going to do nothing. At least that's my opinion, and what I feel has been somewhat proven through this test.
And finally, let's hear what our judges had to say.
So I think my favorite takeaway was actually one from Colette. And she found that basically, while she couldn't get her test site to rank, just having the nonsense keyword on an existing blog that she had, which already gets traffic, was enough to make that blog start actually ranking for the nonsense keywords. And I think that's an important distinction, is that one, even when we have failed tests that didn't do what we thought they were going to do, you can still actually learn and have other takeaways from it. And then also just the reminder that you do not need a page for every single keyword or every single topic. A lot of times, if you have an existing strong page that is related, you can simply add the keyword to that page, and that page will start ranking, which is a really good reminder. I think a lot of SEOs forget that.
I liked how Colette handled her tests when Google wouldn't index her pages. Instead of stopping, she kept probing. And then what she found out with AI mode and ChatGPT was very interesting. Both of them treated her nonsense keywords as SEO tests and wouldn't treat them as real entities. So that tells us that these systems are running their own legitimacy tests now. They're judging whether something is real or not. And that's worth keeping an eye on as we all try to figure out AI search through testing.
Hello. I really liked the idea from Colette Nicole of testing if adding a case to a money page would make them rank higher. And as with testing and SEO in general, sometimes we find things that are not expected, and even if the original test didn't go as planned, you found some things that were super interesting with the AI search. The findings from publishing your article on your blog that started to rank and also showing the AI overviews because it was ranking. I think this was genuinely interesting, and it could be interesting to investigate this further and test this further. For example, if ranking high in Google helps even more in AI visibility, or if it's enough to just rank. Really interesting original idea also, and it was very interesting to take part of your case.
Even if all the tests suffered from getting their pages indexed to have a full experiment, I thought that Team Coco's tenacity was really enjoyable. It was fun to read the experiment, to see how far they could take it, and to see Google actually call them out for doing an experiment. And so I think this is going to be possibly a signal of the future, that these experiments are not going to be able to happen like they previously have been, and we're going to have to get creative. But shout out for creating a scenario that actually is connecting SEO to revenue, to real life results. And so it was a really fun read, a great doc and presentation. So well done.
Thank you to our judges for sharing their feedback throughout each of these experiments. As you've seen, every team approached their testing from a different perspective. Each experiment began with an hypothesis, followed a structured methodology, and carefully documented what happened along the way. In research and SEO, not every test produces the results or the outcomes we wish. Sometimes the biggest takeaways comes from the process itself. The unexpected challenges encountered or the new questions that emerge. With that in mind, let's take a closer look at how our judge panel evaluated each submission and how final scores were determined. So right now that you've seen every recording, every testing results, every experiment, we will see how the judges, they evaluate each testing and each experiment. While ranking performance was certainly a part of the overall score, it was only one part of the story. Our judges, they used a structured scoring rubric that looked at each submission from multiple perspectives. They consider not only ranking results, but also real-world value of the experiment, how thoughtfully the team interpreted their findings, the scientific rigor of testing process, and overall quality of the presentation and documentation. That approach reflects what this hackathon was designed to encourage. The goal wasn't simply to reward the biggest ranking improvement. It was to recognize thoughtful experimentation, meaningful analysis, and work that contributes to real insights to the SEO community. Before we announce this year's runner-up and winner, I'd like to take a moment to recognize every participant in this inaugural hackathon. Every submission began with a question. From there, each team, they develop a hypothesis, build an experiment, document their process, and shared what they learned along the way. No matter where a team finished in the final standing, every submission helped IMGs on tradition of testings, learning and sharing knowledge within the SEO community. Thank you to every participant for contributing your time, your effort, and your willingness to put your ideas to test. Now, let's review the results. Guys, just a reminder, for everyone who's been watching this hackathon live, everyone who's been watching has a 30% discount code. We have the links. You will see the links in the description of this YouTube video and also in the comments. About the runner-up, our judges selected this year's runner-up based on the overall evaluation across the rubric, recognizing the quality of the submission, the team's approach to the experiment, and the way they documented and interpreted their findings. Congratulations to this year's runner-up, Peloton Labs! Congratulations once again to the team Peloton Labs. And now it's time to review the winning submission. After carefully reviewing each submission, our judges selected one team whose work stood out across the scoring rubric. And congratulations to Coco team! Congratulations, Coco. You're the winner of the inaugural SEO Hackathon Awards. Congratulations once again to the winners, the runner-up, of this inaugural hackathon, and we would like to thank you, every participant who made this inaugural hackathon possible. Now, I would like to welcome back IMG President Tim Nichols for a few closing thoughts.
Hey, wow, congratulations to all of the participants who took part in this hackathon. We all need to remember hackathons are about learning. They're about experimentation and a safe space to go do something that maybe doesn't create the outcome we're looking for. And we saw some of that today, right? The point of a hackathon is always to get into the scientific process and learn from it in whatever outcome that might be. And that definitely showed in this particular case. So I just want to congratulate the participants. Really great work just digging through the whole process and getting to the place where you are. I want to celebrate that willingness to just get out there, to put that, those outcomes on the line and share your work so that the rest of us can benefit from it. Super cool. It's what it's about. For those of you who are watching and thinking about what this looks like, this is really an example for how IMG has focused in all of its history, is using science to separate the noise from the reality and getting down to the fact of what actually will work for your clients and make better outcomes. So think about that and how you manage your day-to-day. Also consider coming and joining the IMG community. This is all about what we do. We're focused on community. We want to bring people together to help each other succeed and to create more good outcomes for your folks. I want to thank everybody that came together to make this event happen over the last few weeks. First off, our sponsors, Whitepress, thank you guys. You've been a big partner on other events for IMG too, and it's really great working with you every time. Yoyao and Floyi, thank you so much. When we made the call for sponsors, you were the first to jump in and say, yeah, you wanted to be a part of it. Really awesome, and we appreciate your partnership. Judges, Kyle Roof, of course, founder of IMG, now on Page Optimizer Pro. Thank you so much for participation. You led the way in how IMG focuses on science in the first place. So thanks for your leadership and for your partnership. Katarina, Dahlin from Whitepress, thank you for participating. Joy Hawkins, I know the timing wasn't perfect for you and yet you made it work. So Joy from Sterling Sky, awesome. Helene, Jelenc from Flow Agency, thank you for judging. It's a big help to have everybody here. And Yoyao from Floyi, also we're all judges. Couldn't do it without you. Mentors, these are folks that just made themselves available from their professional experience and background to the teams if they had questions or wanted to work through something along the way. Thank you guys. Itamar Blauer from Whitepress and Yash Singh from TradeUps Consulting. You guys were great. Really appreciate you partnering with us. And then I want to thank the team that put all of this together. Amanda Pimenta, you've seen her running and facilitating here. She's also our community manager and events facilitator in many ways, runs the roundtable as well. Amanda, you're amazing. Tim Upton, our marketing director and general creative thinker around all of the space that we do. He's also our SEO expert on the team. And then Rita Ramos, our head of operations. Rita is fundamentally the Tim wrangler between me and Tim Upton. She keeps us on track and keeps everything moving smoothly. So thank you so much, Rita. I want to just close one more point. IMG is really digging in on community. We believe that AI is creating all kinds of productivity in what happens out there in the world. But what's going to become scarce is the human connection that makes people function well and connect. Those are the ways we're going to succeed in the world, and IMG is digging in heavily on connecting humans to create great solutions. We're here for you, so we're looking forward to seeing more of you. These events matter so much because they create that separation of noise from signal. Keep it up. I'm looking forward to seeing you all next time.